seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Love Talk Radio.
Oh, good morning. Good morning. It is a beautiful morning. This is the last day of November here in 2020. And this is the K Factor where you've landed, where K equals kindness and the factors are all the things that lead to it. And I'm your host, Dr. Deb Carlin, and I have got a fabulous gift for you today. The kindness that I'm bringing to you is Mr. Brian Lunt. Good morning, Brian. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm doing wonderful. How about yourself?
I'm doing fabulous. I've been so excited about having this time with you. Brian and I have known each other for a number of years in a number of different ways, but always as fellow entrepreneurs. And so here's what I wrote about. Uh, I didn't write it, but our PR team put this together for us as I was describing to them today. And what it says is that I interview someone I've long admired in the space of entrepreneurs, Brian Lunt. My description of him is that he is a person willing to step out beyond any reasonable comfort zone and take the risk, both financially and on people and ideas, and then nurture the project to realize positive outcomes. Now, listen to this, though. Here's the real kicker. That's the guts and the heart of an entrepreneur. But here's the other part of it. He is a man who is unafraid to make changes as needed. Now, why is that so critical? Because so many people as entrepreneurs step into this space and they're like, this has got to happen this way. We're not changing anything. This is the plan. And if you're a real true entrepreneur, you go with the beat of the heart, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Brian, how long have you been an entrepreneur?
So I kind of branched out on my own towards the end of 2015, early 2016. I often say that I've always been entrepreneurial minded. So
There you go. That's the trick.
probably since birth.
Yes, there you go. Pull out, open up prize door number B.
Right.
It really is, there's a spirit of entrepreneurship that you either have or you don't. You can have an idea and never work to actualize it. And then people like you and I are like, oh man, I got a fire in my belly and this has got to go. So when you say that you stepped out in 2015 or 2016, that wasn't your first entrepreneurial step though. You had been doing things prior to all that.
I have, yeah. So I spent about 13 years in the banking sector, working for a local community bank here in St. Louis,
Uh-huh.
and worked for my father, who was the president and CEO of that company, and spent some great years learning banking, learning business, making my way through every department of the organization, and yeah, it was a fantastic learning period for me.
By the way, when you were doing that, did you guys ever stay after the bank closed or come in before it opened and go into the vault and play with all the cash?
So yeah, you can take cash, you can throw it on it. We have a bed in the back, in the very back. It's a room, private room. So you just kind of live out that fantasy that you see in the movies.
That's awesome. I would love that. I've always wanted to do that.
I ought to offer that up as a side service for another revenue stream for the bank. So we'll see if we can put that together.
I will pay you $500,000 to jump into millions. That'd be great. Okay, which you have to make the deposit after you get the thrill. And when you first stepped out of the banking business, what was that like? And how did you describe how you went to your parents and said, hey, this is really solid. Thanks for the full-time gig. I know I've worked hard for it, but I have another dream. I think I want to walk to the edge of the cliff and I'm going to have faith that there's steps there for me to travel safely over this huge ravine of entrepreneur risk.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely the feeling that you have to have and the leap that you have to take. I often tease that I tried to quit 5 times and wasn't successful until the 6th time with my father, because my dad's an incredible man, and he always loved the fact that I had a very good, solid job and career kind of under his umbrella. And I think he always wanted the best for me and didn't want me to go that direction because it was scary. As every entrepreneurs, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. And so I finally got to the point where I felt out of place in more of a structured environment and wanted the thrill and excitement of not knowing what was in my future. And so I went to my father and just said, I can't do this any longer. I've got to go spread my wings and do something else. I went to my wife at the time and I said, I need a year to figure this out. So I need a full year to explore the opportunities, look at the possibilities. And my pitch at that time was, if I take a year now, well, then I won't need to take, or I can just have an additional year before I retire. Or if I do decide to choose the pathway that I'm supposed to be on, maybe I never will retire. And so I thought, as an investment of time and effort into the process, it was a no-brainer. And so, at least that, from my perspective, it was a no-brainer. So
Yeah, really. And
yeah.
you want to know something funny? Here's the thing that I think is so intriguing. My parents were both very entrepreneurial. I come from a long line of entrepreneurial people, and I didn't ever really realize it. You know, you grow up with it, you think everybody is that way. So I didn't understand, like, why were people leaving at a certain hour of the day and then never coming home until later? And my parents were just doing this thing. I never had a clue when there was strife. It wasn't until I was in my 20s that my mother started sharing with me how stressful life had been at various points in time with the businesses that they had. And, you know, like, your father didn't take a paycheck for a year and a half. And I was like, how did we take all those vacations? And I mean, there weren't credit cards at the time.
Right.
But they were just used to that risk and they managed it. But when I was stepping out and being very entrepreneurial, my mother said, just go get a job. And I said, I don't even, what are you talking about? I didn't even want to work for my allowance for you people. You know, so
Yeah.
I don't understand. But how was the reaction of your dad? You said it took you 6 times to be able to really step out there. And when you stepped out there, did you have a solid plan and you knew what you were going to do and he kind of gave you a blessing on high? Or was he saying, look, son, come back if you need to? Or what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, my dad really gave me the opportunity to go out on my own. I mean, the benefit I've had of being in finance and being in business and getting the education that backs that up is that I believe that I have a strong expertise in risk assessment. And so I look very cavalier on the outside, but I think of things 1,000 times through before I make any decision. And so it looks like I'm just, going and trialing all these different wild things, but I know exactly what I'm getting into at all times. And so what I often tell friends and clients is that if you make peace with your worst case scenario and you still want to do what you're doing, then you've got it, right? And so I basically went to my personal situation, my financial situation. I just said, giving this a year, I could do this for 5 years if I really needed to, based on what I was willing to give to it. And so I did have a plan in my head. I said, I'm going to start a company, and I did. It's called Seed Level Creativity Lab, which has many meanings, but that's the company that I started and I still run today. The intent was to go out and trial a lot of different things, and the things that were meant to be in my life or the opportunities that were going to be presented would naturally prioritize themselves based on the opportunity that presented. So I had all these crazy ideas in my head. Some of them looked halfway decent, but most of them were just ideas, right? And I knew ideas were fun, but execution was where it needed to be. And so my concept was I was going to spend an entire year. I was going to put together a business plan every week. So it was a challenge that I gave myself called the Top 50 Challenge. Yeah. And so I set out of 50 business plans, I should be able to come up with at least one idea that will set the tone for the remainder of my life. Now, what happened around that time, I'm from St. Louis. I love St. Louis. As you can see with the map that I have behind me, I've been all over the world. And even though I've been to hundreds of places, I still call St. Louis home and love it the most. And I think it's the greatest city on the earth. But at that time, we were going through a lot of turmoil. The St. Louis Rams were leaving, and Stan Kroenke was crapping all over our town. And the Ferguson riots were going on. One of my alma maters, Mizzou, was having some race relations. And for for the first time in my life, I was a little disappointed in St. Louis. And so I said, I'm going to take this opportunity, this top 50 challenge, and I'm going to attach St. Louis to it. And so I started this little platform called Top 50 STL. And my goal was to promote the top 50 positive stories about St. Louis on a weekly basis. And so I stole 7 of the spots. I did an economic development idea for the city. I did my business idea that I was launching out in the universe. And I did some top rankings for charities and restaurants and other things that were about St. Louis. And then the other 43 spots were all stories that I took from the marketplace that were all positive about St. Louis.
Wow.
And it was my intent to retrain my brain to see only the positive about the city. And I learned a tremendous amount over that year's time. It just also gave me the organizational template in order to design what it was that I was out to do. And then it led me to have a lot of really interesting things to talk about as I was navigating the networking circles around St. Louis and meeting folks. And then I turned it into a radio show, and I had, email marketing going out there and a lot of fun things that I got to trial alongside everything I was doing. And what I set out to do and what I've been capable of achieving is I had this wild idea that over a 20-year period, I could start 20 companies and maintain a 5% ownership in each one of those companies. And at the end of 20 years, I'd have this 100% portfolio that then I could just kind of ride into whatever retirement looked like. And through just wild variability and variety of projects, that's sort of what I've done for the last 5+ years. And man, it's been a fun ride so far.
This is so exciting. As you're talking, I'm thinking, I want to pause you and ask questions, but no, I want to hear more. No, I want to ask a question. No, wait, I want to hear that first of all, talk about an ambitious spirit and brain capacity to, most people will write a business plan in their life and agonize about it for years. Mm-hmm. How in the world do you do such rapid fire on your business plans? You have a template that you fill in?
I do. I shouldn't say that. I mean, I launched everything as more of a 1-page, 2-page business concept. So any type of business plan is going to have your 1 or 2-page overview that you share with everybody, and then you fill in all the details afterwards.
Right.
Oddly enough, I'm actually not a huge fan of business plans, especially the very long and detailed business plans, because they never go to plan. And so my idea was to at least have an idea of what it needed to be, and then go forward with the concept and trial it. And that's kind of what I've been known for in the St. Louis marketplace with the structures that I've put around that process.
Okay, now, one of the things that you and I were talking about in advance of this, when I was telling you, come on over here, do this with me, Brian, come on, this is great, is called what? And I said, oh my gosh, the font, the page that you've got, describe that. Tell everyone what the name of it is and what that is. What is that? The business something.
So my current platform for networking and for bringing groups and good folks together is called the St. Louis Business Club.
The St. Louis Business Club.
Yes.
And talk about that and what that means to you. And what is just talk about it.
So how that connects with what I did for my first year is that I basically went out in the marketplace and told everybody I wanted to launch all these ideas, and I wanted at least one of them to materialize. Oddly enough, the idea of generating ideas became the business plan that I built and the business that I built. And so that materialized into a co-working space that I launched called Medici Media Space. And what I laced into that was a process of weekly strategy sessions that we could bring our community together and we could help one another. We could figure out ways that our groups of people could have a group genius model. We could rely on all the strengths of everybody that came to the table, and we could help accelerate everyone's growth by working together. And so that was kind of the initial stages of the co-working and kind of consulting community that I compiled. Now, after a couple of years of running those and having a partnership with that company, I realized that my partner and I had only so much knowledge to provide, and I didn't feel as comfortable giving them knowledge or advice or opinions really in areas of expertise that I was not an expert. And so after I sold that company to my partner, I decided that I wanted the next iteration to be more geared around experts in the marketplace. And so I went out and I found I had been developing a curriculum for the last 10, 15 years prior to that, based on 6 areas of life expertise and 6 areas of business expertise.
Oh,
And so what I did is I said, I want to go get 12 masters and bring them to be the core of this group. And so the original design of the business club is that we have a council of masters that provides the strategic overview, the board of advisors, board of directors, whatever you want to call them, and each one of them represent an expertise in one of those areas. So for me, it's the ultimate mastermind, because I can walk in and feel credible in the areas that I understand, but there are many that I don't. And I think in order to have a very holistic and well-rounded organization, you need somebody at the table that represents each one of those areas. So that is our mastermind, and we've been meeting for over a year now, and they're just tremendous folks that all have really relevant and masterful understanding in each one of those areas.
so I just pulled up. I'm going to do a quick screen share because for our people who are now, if you're listening on Blog Talk Radio, fabulous. This is part of our platform. But what I'd like to invite you to do, this is the audio version, but we are simultaneously broadcasting this on Zoom. So this Zoom episode ends up on a YouTube channel. And by the way, you drum roll, you, Brian, are the very first guest for the new YouTube channel, which is called Partners in Excellence Media.
Very exciting.
Because what came to me is I've got a Deb Carlin page, a Deborah Carlin page, channels on YouTube, and a Build the Strength Within channel, and those are fine. But really, in 2020, one of the things that I decided was, first of all, the news. What is the news? What is the news? Wait a second. Why is the news about nothing that we can influence? Why is the news this top-down heavy that I don't know. I do not know a single human being anywhere, I mean around the world, who I'm in touch with, who doesn't feel the uncertainty, the anguish, and all the other negative adjectives that I'm not going to run through because it's morning and we're having a cuppa and a great conversation. So I decided that there needed to be the creation of my masters and people that I know, like, and trust, really adore for their expertise, bring them together and have them be co-hosts on here because I think it's essential. So let me show our audience, who is going to go to later today, this YouTube channel, Partners in Excellence Media, and tell me when you can see the screen.
I see it.
All right, great. Now I want to tell you something. I told Brian this yesterday. When I opened this up, I mean, I felt in love with every part of it. It's a beautiful gold and a beautiful kind of a purplish blue. The colors are very, they're elegant and formal, and they are business. And yet, you know what? It's also relaxing. The St. Louis Business Club font that's part of the brand is beautiful. And there's home, about, there's the president's message, resources and contact. And it is a view of the arch from the bottom that is spectacular. And it says, welcome to the St. Louis Business Club. And I want to tell you, I want everybody on here to go to this and click on subscribe to our newsletter, because what it is that you can get out of this, I think, is amazing. Is there anything on here that you would like me to click on to share with people? Or would you prefer to just keep talking about it and talking about the 4.5 hours worth of dialogue I have planned?
Well, I mean, I try to put out there a blog each week to discuss some of the topics that we are working on. So we have those stored on the page. On our resources tab, we have the other masters that are a part of our group. So I always like to promote them because it is a group effort with all the things that we're putting out there.
Fabulous.
I have to give all credit to my favorite master. I'm extremely biased. So our master in branding is Karen Libby, who is also my mother.
I love Karen Libby. I think we better give her a huge shout. Go, Karen Libby.
Absolutely. She is my number one. I'm her number one fan.
Yeah.
And she just does a tremendous job with branding the club and all the other projects that we work on together. She truly is a master at kind of pulling out what the essence of someone or someone's business is and then portraying that in a digital fashion. So yeah, I can't speak more highly, and it's just a bonus that she's my mom.
Well, I'll tell you what, I didn't know that for years. And when somebody told me, oh, my friend Shelley Barr said, do you know Brian Lunt? And I said, yeah. She said, do you know his mother, Karen Libby? And I said, this is his mother. She said, yes, it is. I said, yeah. First of all, Karen Libby's not old enough to be his mother.
I agree.
And I mean, we had this hilarious argument about the two of you. So when you click on here, I will tell you, you're going to be amazed when you look at this. And I'm going to describe to our listeners who are viewing this. When you see this on the video, you're going to say, my God, this is some of the most beautiful photography. And it's all a little bit different. And then you've got the St. Louis Club Masters, Heather Kreider, Bing Dempelith, Patrick Dorsey, Richard Dury, Dr. Tom Gargula, Dr. Deb Gott, Mike Kitko, Eric Legrone, Karen Libby, and Brian Lunt, Mark Metz, Becky Schoenig, Bruce Wayner, and then there's partners that go into BioFit St. Louis with owner John Zarbach, Symbol with Becky Schoenig, and Windmill Wellness Center with, Dr. Tom Gargula. Is that how you pronounce his name, Gargula?
Gargula, but we always call him Dr. G.
There you go, Dr. G. And when you come back over here, so you can come to the site and look at all that. And when you come on here and you click on a message from the president, again, all the photography on here and the way that the brand has been put together, everything is easy to read. There's not too much information. It's business-like, but you know, one of the things I love is that the pages are short. They're not these huge long scroll downs. And the photographs are very inviting and business-like. And wow, I mean, congratulations on doing
my mom, I'm getting one more shout out. My mom's a professional photographer, and she has the largest pool of St. Louis photography of anyone that I know. She probably has 20,000 pictures of St. Louis. And she loves going out. It's kind of her therapy on a weekly basis to the different neighborhoods in St. Louis. And she just represents the city so nicely in the way that she sees it. And obviously I use all of her photography in all the projects that I work on.
You know, one of the things about business that I've always spoken about is that the more personal business is, the better it is. Now, when I was in my early 20s, I got involved in as a young entrepreneur. I got involved in these business deals with these guys who were really sharky. And here's when I knew I was in trouble. We were in the middle of a negotiation, and I'm thinking, well, this can either go really well or maybe not so much. And when the guy at the table, who was the decision maker, said to me, now I just want you to remember something. This is not personal. This is business. And then he completely cheated me.
Yeah.
And so what I said to him at the end of that horrific day was, I said, by the way, here's the lesson that you taught me today. And he said, what's that? And I said, on the left hand is business. On the right hand is personal. And you're always praying, putting your hands together. It's a very personal. Business is very personal. And by the way, personal is very much business.
Yeah.
I don't care what kind of relationship it is. we have a lot of business in any of our relationships. You know, like if we're going out to lunch, are you picking up the check, or are we going Dutch, or are we taking turns and not worrying about it?
Yes.
Everything in life is political. You get more than just yourself there, and there's a body politic and a dynamic.
Yeah.
So one of the things I love about your site is it's very classic, it's very elegant, and it's also got a very personal, inviting feel to it.
It does. And, you know, I have the benefit of working with a lot of clients and businesses, and my design has always been life design, then business design, because you need to know who you are and what you stand for first, so that you can then choose a business or a career that is going to help you live that life to the fullest. And the more that you can intertwine those two, obviously there's different hats that you put on, there's different scenarios that you're presented with, but you cannot take yourself out of the way that you conduct your business. And you're always responsible for the way that you conduct your business. And so I love the fact that that lesson came through. Even from a legal perspective, I've talked to experts that say you're always responsible for the way that you conduct yourself. The business doesn't somehow take away your liability for being a good person or having integrity or all these other things. If you can mask yourself by, oh, I was just doing business, that's not the type of people I want to do business with.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So, Brian, describe for our audience, as we're here and what we're really doing today is I'm doing an expose on you and interviewing you, but I really want to introduce to people, especially here in 2020, when people are so bereft about, you know, I lost my job. I mean, I took a job because I figured it, you know, I'd be employed forever and then I'd retire. And by the way, going back to something that you said at the very beginning, when I went off on a little journey about my mom and dad, you were talking about, and then retire, or maybe never retire. I don't know entrepreneurs who ever retire. They just set a different pace.
Yeah.
You know? So Tony Robbins and I are about the same age. And I've actually had the pleasure and the honor of spending some time with him. And actually, he helped me name Build the Strength Within. We had a great conversation about why it needed to be called that, which is for another conversation. But he is never retired, but he keeps a very different pace. And the projects that he does keep him busy, but he's adopted and been adopted by a bunch of younger guys who, you know, saw him on late night TV when all we knew was Anthony Robbins, the guy with the suit and the big teeth, was on. And he was talking about something that you needed to buy, and we all bought his tapes. So he's adopted and been adopted by like Dean Graziosi and younger guys who are taking the lead and really pushing things out there. But when you are a real entrepreneur, you've got this fire in your belly. I think that in 2020 here, and this is part of the news of this media channel, the news is friends in America, and I can't tell you what the conditions are around the world, but I can kind of tell you what the conditions are in the world. If you have mobile service, if you have internet exposure, you can have a thriving business anywhere. If you can get a fire in your belly about a mission that you want to be on, or a person who you want to attach to, who you can ride along with, and they will guide you into your business, right? So that map behind you, I'm born and raised in Chicago and I love it. But I'll tell you what, I love St. Louis. I love the lake up here in Chicago. I love the quintessential elegance. And even amidst all the trouble in St. Louis, I love the quiet and the peace and the tranquility and the dedication of St. Louisans to St. Louis. It's still St. Louisans. And I'm not so sure that Chicago is anymore really Chicagoans. So when you are creating this entrepreneurial journey, I don't believe that you are going to retire. I mean, you have got so much on your plate. And you're only what, 23 now? So you've got
just turned.
I just turned 24. So
I had the 20th anniversary of my 21st birthday.
Great. So what I'm thinking is you're creating, unless I'm mistaken, a space that people can enjoy virtually, but you've also got a physical space,
Yeah.
plural, that people can come into. And especially when the world, oh, I feel like I put my hands together and say, dear God, please, when the world comes back into a space where we can be face to face and relax with one another in our physical space, you've got those spaces ready and waiting.
Yes. So what's interesting, I even saw this morning that, the word of the year is pandemic, which is just depressing. I believe the word of the year is adaptability. And I think that is at the core of entrepreneurship. Um, what I did, what I set out to do originally when I left on my entrepreneurial journey was create a virtual network of resources.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to make sure that we're all connected by the similar core values, a spirit of abundance and helping one another,
Mm-hmm.
and could create an atmosphere, could create an environment that we're all in it together and we genuinely want each other to succeed. And how
Yeah.
can we get the most efficient use of one another in order to do so? Now, I was fortunate to align with my partner and trial that through a physical space and bring people together physically. And the truth of the matter is, there's a connection that happens in person, there's an energy that happens in person, and there's an intimacy that happens in person that you cannot have virtually, even though it's been a wonderful opportunity that has been given to us this year to connect with so many virtually. So what I saw as the adaptation of that was a hybrid between both. And so I've created a space that for me is what I truly want, is to be in person with folks, because that's where I get the most energy out of helping people and being with one another. And so I've created environments. It's fun. It's got themes. I've got, I've got a space where we can have coffee meetings in a cafe that looks like Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, really?
I've got a place to have a drink with somebody in a place that looks like an Irish pub. I've got, all these fun things that are developed in, Disney World models and in restaurants and all these other places. Like, why do we go away from our business in order to have this fun atmosphere?
Yeah.
Why not interlace the two together? And so I've got a really fun space. But the upstairs of our space is also set up as a content production studio so that we can promote what it is that we're doing here in a virtual world, in a digital space, and we can also connect to others around the world. And so we've got some fun technologies. We've got the structure set up to where, yes, we want the optimal environment to be us in person, but we can share that with thousands of people around the world and have this nice hybrid. And hopefully the folks that are a little fearful of what's going on in the world, they're unsure, they're not ready to venture out, they can still join us and be a part of the things that we're doing, regardless of whether they're here in person or not. And hopefully some of that intimacy, comes out as we're having our meetings and we're all together. And so far, it's been a lot of fun. It's been out of necessity, but I believe it will. As the catchphrase this year is the new normal. It'll be a part of the new normal that we get used to moving forward.
I love to, I always started any group that I've been in charge of or I'm visiting. I love the physical greeting of walking in and not just touching and shaking hands, but, really giving people a hug.
Yeah.
And that has been difficult for around the world this year, right?
Yeah.
And so I agree with you 100%. I will tell you, I have gotten so comfortable in my Zoom room. And one of the things that I'd really like to do is expand my technology so that I can do it anywhere. So, there's different camera setups and all that you can get. So I can do it in different parts of my home. I can do it on the waterfront and not just do it as a Facebook Live, which is just super easy, but to really record it and take people on a journey. So one of the things I'm thinking about that would be fun if you have that capacity where you're at is to do an episode of the show, because I know that you're going to want to do this every week. They do an episode of the show in each of those different spaces and
Yeah.
give people the flavor of it. Because if what we do is we think limited, then we're going to be limited. And you said one of the criteria, and this is one of my criteria too, anybody who I bring onto this platform, we've got to have an alignment of the minds. We've got to have the alignment of the attitudes. And it's not about being, the captain of the debate team, being provocative by asking nasty questions, poking the bear with a hot stick and seeing if you can get a rise out of anybody. It's about generating really positive ideas, because we don't have time to fire those negative neurons and waste space on why not. It is, yeah, why not? Why? Yeah, we're doing this. This is what we need to do. So when people come into your space, like we have audience members who are listening and they're saying, what could I go there and do? I mean, do I need to come in person? Should I sign up on the e-news and then it'll come to me? Or can I talk to somebody? What's the first steps that I should take? Should I call Dr. Carlin, or should I call Dr. Entrepreneur up there, Brian Lunt?
So what we're launching beginning in January is this in-person virtual hybrid. And each one of our masters is going to present on a weekly basis. And so
Okay.
we have a weekly gathering. It's a mastermind. It's 90 minutes, and we meet every Wednesday afternoon Central Time. And what we like to do is have the introductions, that the people who come in person, the people who are, if we have time for as many people virtually as we can to introduce to that community and bring into the community. And then we have the time slotted for each one of our masters to present, so that over the course of the first quarter and every quarter following, we can actually do that holistic understanding of all the 6 areas of life and all the 6 areas of business, so that each one of our members or attendees can get their a good understanding, a good overview of where things are going. And then when they want to dive deeper, well, then that's when it's appropriate to engage one of those masters and really dive in deeper to each one of those areas. And so, like I said, the core of the club is built around this mastermind and encouraging everyone to look at every area of their life and every area of the business, so that you're not completely weighted in one space. So you were talking earlier about entrepreneurs that come in early and stay late. Well, what's your family life looking like if that's what's going on? What is your energy level looking like in other areas of life and business? And so we put a very large focus on holistic understanding so that you don't falter. Also, if you're a Tony Robbins type of energy, his physical fitness and his mental fitness is so strong because it has to be in order for him to perform at that level. So he almost has to be an Olympic athlete in order to spend 12 hours on a stage jumping up and down and, sweating out a gallon of sweat while he's inspiring, 3,000 people in the audience. And so there's just a huge focus on mastery at every level and going to the sources of that mastery to make sure that we're creating superhumans that can hopefully influence themselves and their families and their communities and ultimately the world.
I love that model, and I'm going to tell you a couple of things that are running through my mind. First of all, I hired this was like 15 years ago, I hired 2 consultants of Tony Robbins to be my business consultants. Mm-hmm. The one, Brooke Bishop, was the guy who did the original screening and interview with me. And we had such a good click. He assigned me to Bill Baker. And I said, but Brooke, I can't let go of you. And Bill brings a different dimension of something. So the 3 of us stayed connected. And they did a lot of things to help me understand how to get an MBA in business. Even though as a psychology PhD, I had a lot of business training and organizational development and assessment and all that. They drove me nuts with all the details of business down to the fine print. And it was really helpful. And then they said, you really need to come to Fiji and spend some time in a smaller group working with Tony. And so I flew down there. And one of the things he said to me as I mapped out my whole business was, he said, Deb, if you're going to really, really do this and have a personal life, you've got to be in top physical condition so you can survive your success.
Yes.
And I thought, say what? What are you talking about? And then I realized, his wife, who Sage, who's just this little tiny sparkle of fairy dust sweet, who's also really strong. She really shepherds him into, like, when people are glomming around on him, she works her way in there, and she gently, all of a sudden, he's disappeared because she is working on preserving that energy and getting him to, I think, for maybe the first time in his life, get into a mind body, personal, professional, public, private balance, which God bless her heart. The other thing that runs through my mind, because we need him around for a very long time, he's invaluable.
Incredible.
But the other thing that occurs to me, when I walked into the ecosystem, as they call it, the entrepreneurial space in St. Louis, and I went around on behalf of the Missouri Venture Forum looking at taking over that organization because they were going to close, and becoming their leader, their president, and their chief executive officer. I went around and I talked to all these leaders of these entrepreneur spaces, and I said, how are you feeling? And they were like, well, what do you mean? Like, nobody asks us that. It's how's your budget or how many people are showing up? And I said, no, really, I want to know how you're feeling. And one of the things that they talked about, not just the leadership, but the people in those spaces, there's a thing called entrepreneurial porn. And I said, oh my God, what are you talking about? And they said, it's this filth. It's this filthy, ridiculous thing that people get hooked on. I mean, they get addicted to it. How's business? Oh, I'm working on my project. I worked 18 hours, then I worked 32 hours, and I had coffee and I ate a couple donuts, and then I ran out to McDonald's. And what are you talking about? So one of the things I started talking about the Missouri Venture Forum needing to do was introduce the idea of well-being.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're way ahead of the curve in town by setting up an environment that is saying, look, this is another component that we really need to be talking about, bringing experts together on. How has that been received? Is it just a natural step into it?
It's been adaptability has been the key this year. Health and wellness should be something that we focus on incredibly more with everything that we've been going through in 2020 as an entire world. I mean, the quality of health on our planet should be at utmost importance right now. And so I had the benefit of actually jumping into a health and wellness business prior to getting my operations next door on my campus going, because friends of mine who purchased the properties that I have my businesses located in had a yoga studio that was available. And they were going to move some offices in there and decided not to. And they said, do you want to take on this yoga business? And I said, not really, but I'm foolish enough to think I can do anything. So why not? And so I went out to the health and wellness community, and taking my history in the sharing economy and this co-working model, and said, why don't we take health and wellness experts in the St. Louis area, and we'll put them all under one roof, and we'll utilize the spaces for them to create their businesses, get them ramped up, and then hopefully we can graduate them into something even better if they need their own brick and mortar or their own space. And so I reached out to extremely good resources. My good friend Jermaine Andre, who is the baddest man on the planet. He is the first mixed martial arts Hall of Famer, world class in both his capabilities and his level of compassion, which is an interesting hybrid.
Really?
But he, 3-time world champion, 5-time United States champion. And he just has this, he knows more. He's forgotten more, that old adage, he's forgotten more than most people know, but he's just an incredible resource. And so we have a mixed martial arts focus there.
Say his name one more time.
Jermaine Andre.
Okay.
And Jermaine's another one of these folks that I love finding people who are undervalued in the marketplace.
Oh, yeah.
Because, and I see the value, he is ready to explode on a world stage. He's already been there in terms of being an athlete. I am ready to put him there in terms of being a coach and a trainer And with all the things that are going on in St. Louis from a community perspective, his capabilities to inspire youth and others in the community is just off the charts. And so I'm getting a little bit off on a tangent, but
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful tangent to go off on. That's incredible.
he is just, we had him tested because as a part of all the clients and people that I work with, I like to go through the assessments, and I had a disc assessment done on him, and Art Snarzik, who's a good friend of mine who helps me do those.
I love Art Snarzik.
First
of all, I love his name.
Yeah, and Art said that Jermaine is in the top 5% of the entire planet in terms of compassion. And so you find this guy who looks like he's a killer, because he can just dominate other athletes on the world stage, but then you find out who he is on the inside, and he's a big teddy bear, and he doesn't want everybody to know that. So
all right, well, they know it now.
but they should know it, because that's what adds to his capability, and that's why I'm not afraid of him. So every time he looks scary, I'm like, he's not gonna hurt you. But so we have the mixed martial arts focus. We have the oldest ongoing yoga studio in St. Louis called West East Yoga with Jaime Sanchez, who originally from Venezuela, but he teaches all over the planet. And they're based out of there. And then we have functional health focus with Dr. Matt Flory. And then we have a couple other providers that do massage and some more in-depth, not necessarily therapies, but just a variety of things. And so that was
treatments of one sort or another.
What's that?
Treatments of one sort or another.
Yeah. So I mean, there's breath work, there's Reiki, there's a lot of really cool things that are available on the wellness side of things. So that's what we began with, and that allowed me the opportunity to look out into the marketplace and find other extremely high-end resources. So Dr. G, who you mentioned, has his Windmill Wellness Institute, south of us, and then John Zarbach, who represents BioFit. He's got this biohacking model where he has found the most efficient machines and processes in the world. It's the greatest facility I've ever seen. It's why he's a client of mine. I begged him to be a client of mine. I've worked out there since January. Since last year, I've lost 40 pounds. I'm in the greatest shape I've ever been in my life. I feel like I'm, getting to the point where I'm really, ready to jump out on the beach and feel good and, whatever I need to do. It's awesome. It's very empowering to feel and look healthy.
Great.
So, we've been able to find these folks. And then I have another colleague who's building a world-class, world-sized wellness community platform called Emergent Wellness. And that's based out of Phoenix, but we have resources all over the world that we're starting to pool together with this same spirit of we're better together, and we're better when we support one another, and we're better when we're client-centric, and we focus on what's the best for the people that we have in front of us. And so I had the capability of starting to put this wellness community together, and that's one strain of our 12 ideas. And my hope is to get a very robust understanding and community in each one of those spaces, so that we have all the resources within this network that are truly customized to the person that we're working with, depending whether it's a corporation that needs a wellness program, or it's an individual that just needs to get healthy. So that's kind of what we're playing with in a lot of different areas.
What's absolutely fascinating about coming together with you and doing this particular program is that there's so much. When we were talking about setting this up and doing this today, there's so much overlap, and yet we come about it in different ways. And there seems to be this mutual intrigue about what each is doing. So my model has always been about, and I coined the term authentic holistic well-being, which then when people say, what does that mean? I say, because that's the acronym, but when you're really feeling good, life is So the idea was to take Partners in Excellence, which started out as the Whole Health Institute about 35 years ago, working with cardiovascular patients. And people in St. Louis would just look at me like, are you selling whole life insurance or what is it? And I'd say, no, it's more like whole life assurance.
That's
And I
great.
was working with patients with cardiovascular disease, mostly men and their wives with post heart attack, during and then post heart attack, escorting them through the hospital, getting them back home, and teaching them with their physicians and care teams about what my research had been about, which was, yes, you need to do things dietary. Yes, you need to do things physically. But you know what you really need to do? You need to do it in your head first.
Hmm.
And you really need to get your faith involved. And unless you have all these components, you know, you'll go out for a run and you'll run yourself to death, because while you're running, you're
Yep.
angry and you haven't dealt with all that. You better run happy. Otherwise, stop and sit down and meditate for an hour. And if you
Yep.
don't have time to meditate for an hour, then do it for 2 hours, because you
Yep.
really need it. So the work went from personal into professional into doing business consulting, and always threading through the model. If I come in to do an organizational assessment, let me tell you, everybody's stress level goes up to the roof. And then when
Mhm.
I'm reviewing process, same thing. And what I always ask my client, which I always come in through the leadership, do not be telling people that we got a shrink coming into the building, because
Right.
everybody's going to think I'm there to psychoanalyze them. I actually had a president of a company who had a couch in his office. And when we would be in there for meetings and close the door, when I would leave, he'd have this stream of people in there like, how are you feeling now? Did you get to lay down on the couch? Can I get some couch time? He moved the couch out. And I said, that's really unfortunate, because we need to correct the perspective
Yeah.
and get people to understand that this is about brain science. I am not doing psychotherapy, psychoanalysis with people. I'm not coming in and doing therapy with people. I'm treating them, I'm guiding them, but this is about leading people into their brain and understanding what control it has, connecting it to their heart,
Hmm.
and doing a lot of the technologies that is biofeedback and psychophysiology, and known as heart math. I've been working with that company for years. And what we find is absolutely what you're saying. We need to have an environment where we've got a collection of the experts. And what you're doing different than me is you're bringing them together physically as well as virtually, and really forming this beautiful team that
Hmm.
people are going to get all kinds of help with. I love the model that you've created for the year of bringing your 12 together, and you taking these turns, you're all together, so your audience can see, oh, there they are, and hear from them one at a time,
Hmm.
and really get familiar and get to know them. That is an absolutely exquisite model for people.
Yeah, and that's what I was able to trial with the Medici model. Um, my goal was to put people in a room together,
Yeah,
working on things together, so that you could observe what quality of person or professional they are in order to engage them in a personal or professional, deeper relationship. Let's
right.
get to know one another first, and then let's decide whether we ought to work together. And when you're in a group setting and you hear the advice that people give, or even the questions that they ask, you go, well, this person over here doesn't sound all that good for me. Maybe they're not
Yeah,
the quality level or the expertise level, or I just don't fit with them. But this person over here, I'm intrigued by, and I think that's somebody that I want to engage with. And so it's just a forum, it's an opportunity to get to know somebody. And hopefully, it's more efficient use of
exactly.
your time to say, I don't have to go out into the marketplace and interview 50 people before I can find the one person. It's the opposite. I can look at 50 people and decide the one that I want to work with after that engagement. So that's a little bit of the model, trying to put people on display so that they can showcase their expertise and their caring on whether they want to work with somebody or not.
One of the things that I think, no matter what, every cloud has got a silver lining. Optimism is your best friend. And then it drives your perspective and your ability to allow abundance, because
Mhm.
this is an abundant life. This is an abundant reality that we live in. So during 2020, one of the things I think is that before 2020, during a lot of 2019, I was going around all these different networking events. I going here and here and here and here. And I was doing like 12 a week.
Yep.
And then I started getting a little crabby because I'm thinking, I don't like that location. I don't like the vibe. I kind of like the people, but I'm not finding my niche.
Mhm.
I don't want to go. I just want to stop. I want to stop it all. And then when I held back, I found, okay, I'm gravitating towards missing these individuals. And that's really when I decided I needed to create something different.
Mhm.
And really, it was not, I needed to, all of a sudden it's boom, you're not getting together with anybody. So you better figure out who it is that you want to connect into. And I think that that's been a refreshing golden opportunity for all of us.
Mhm.
So this forum grows. Boy, I'll tell you what, my vision ability for what all we got going on here is just amazing. So we've got about 3 minutes left. How do you want to leave this conversation? What is it that you would like our audience to know that they don't already, in terms of you, how to approach, what to do, next steps, advice, invitation, anything?
In terms of just kind of wrapping up philosophy and where I've been in the last couple of months, because you mentioned even the spiritual side of things and um, promoting that and making sure people are investing in that, regardless of what avenue you want to take. But I think on the spiritual side of things, that's something that we can connect on the human level. I always tease that, when you're early stage entrepreneur, you're just getting started, you're the CEO, you're the chief everything officer. So you have to do everything. You have to wear every hat until you graduate someday into a true CEO, which a true CEO does nothing. A true CEO just is responsible for everything and makes sure that they inspire everyone else and they have the vision that's appropriate to that institution or organization, and that everybody is moving in that direction. From a spiritual perspective, I have seen that the greatest CEO among us is whatever version of God you want to decide on. And so for me, God does nothing, but he delegates everything.
Yeah.
And he is ultimately responsible. And so he or she, however you want to define that, the universe, the world, all these different ways to explain these things. But what I have tried to do in my role is delegate as much as I can possibly do, so that I am not in control of things. I am not trying to steer things, but I would like to be a part of having it all happen. And so one of the things that I've seen is that I don't need to own anything. I don't need to be the leader, the perceived leader of anything. But if I can be a part of something and I can help put people together in a way that I become more of
90 seconds.
a channel for these things,
Yeah.
that to me is the ultimate role to play, and also inspire others to do. And so I always recommend that others find people that they can help, put them in positions that they can be successful. And so I like to inspire others to go find work for people that are in their network. Go find opportunities for the people around you and let them do the same for you. And that to me is at the core of this abundance mindset.
Yep.
As a community, make the people around you better and be a channel for good and positivity.
I'll tell you what, this is a channel for good, and you are one of the most welcome guests I've had. And if you think this conversation is limited to this one, well, Brian, I got another conversation with you. Friends, this has been an awesome episode today with Mr. Brian Lunt. What a smashing personality, great heart, wonderful spirit. And I hope that you're going to listen to this episode again and again, and on both channels here on Blog Talk Radio, and also on our Partners in Excellence LLC media channel. This is your host, Dr. Deb Carlin, and my wonderful guest, Brian Lunt. Till next time, peace out, friends. Stick with me here, Brian.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Ta-ta.